Hey friends and book lovers, welcome. Today's video is going to be my anticipated releases for this summer. Now, in the beginning of the year, I did make an anticipated releases video for the entire year of 2021, but as the year goes on, I always find more and more books that I'm adding to my TBR that are new releases, and as such, I just figured for summer and then for fall, I was gonna do seasonal anticipated releases videos because there are so many other announcements and so many books that I am just discovering. So join me while I discuss, I think, about 10 releases that I'm pretty excited for that are coming out this summer. A few of them I'm just really intrigued by, and a few of them I am actually really excited about and have actually already pre-ordered them. So let's get right into it. The first one that I think I talked about in my first video is actually The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nhi Vo. This is a Great Gatsby retelling, but it's queer and Asian, and there's fantastical elements to it, which I'm really excited about. So it's 1920s New York, very Gatsby-esque, very Art Deco, very mysterious, fantastical, and just everything that I'm curious about to read in a book, especially for one book that I think won't be as epic or high fantasy like I'm used to reading, and one that's just lower fantasy. I'm really excited to see what this one is about and to get my hands on a copy of this, because everyone that's read an arc of it has been raving, and all I need to know is a beautiful synopsis and raving reviews to get me super excited about this book. The next book is called Ace of Spades by an author. I'm going to pronounce her name and I might fail spectacularly at it, but it is Farida Abike Iyimide. And this is a thriller book, and basically it's almost like Gossip Girl meets Get Out. I think it's how it's marketed as, and reading the synopsis, that's 100% what it sounds like. There is an anonymous texter out to get these two students in the school and is revealing all the skeletons in their closet in this young adult thriller. So that sounds like an amazing read, and I can't wait to read that. I haven't read too many thrillers. There's one that I want to start with, but Ace of Spades just seems like that amazing, cool kind of thriller where you just won't be able to stop turning the page, which is what I'm hunting for when it comes to thrillers. So I'm really excited about that, and starting out my thriller journey with YA picks is exactly what I want to be doing. The next one is Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, and I realize I haven't been putting out release dates for any of these books, but Jasmine Throne is coming out the 8th of June from what I remember, and this one I actually have an arc for, but it's still on my list because I really do want a hard copy. The cover is just so gorgeous and beautiful. This story is a fantasy story about forbidden magic in a princess and a maid servant, and that was all I needed to know to jump into the arc. I am about 20% through and so far really enjoying it and really trying to unravel what is going to be happening, because it is just starting to pull us really into the story and the plot itself. This next book is also coming out June 8th, and that's Daughter of Sparta by Claire Andrews. This one I'm intrigued about just because it has to do with Greek mythology, and I am a fan of Greek mythology, so I want to know what this is going to be like. And I think this is also another YA thriller. It's about this female fighter who's trying to prove that she's like the most amazing fighter, and that's kind of all I know about it, kind of all I need to know about it. The fact that it's set in Sparta and that it's like a Greek mythology based book is something that really intrigues me because I'm Greek and that is part of my heritage, and I always really enjoy reading mythological retellings, especially to do with and in Greek settings. So excited about that one. I haven't pre-ordered it, but I am debating doing so. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna like it, but we'll see. I tend to be pretty critical of Greek retellings, so I'm going to see how I'm going to do that one, but I'm still anticipating it because I would still like to read it when it does come out. So the next book is apparently a prequel, but I haven't read the other books that it prequels, so we'll see if I read them. But this one is actually one that I'm really intrigued by, just because I know the story is a retelling of a kind of tale, and I have never seen it done in a fantasy book before. But that is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, and it sounds like this is going to be the first in a series. So I'm not sure if it's the series for the other books that have already come out, or if they're going to be a series of books on their own. But basically, there's this princess who has forbidden magic, and on the day of her betrothal, she can't control concealing it. And so her stepmother banishes her and turns her 6 brothers into cranes. And so she's trying to save her 6 brothers and then uncovers a plot to take over the throne. And thus begins our tale of this princess, I guess, trying to save her world. There's a dragon involved and a few other magical, mystical creatures, so that makes me really excited. Not only that, but I have seen this talked about on BookTube mainly, and the arcs that were sent out for this book were, oh my god, they were beautiful. I think some of the art copies are even more beautiful than what I see the cover to be. This book is supposed to be released July 6th from what I understand. I don't know if that's the official publication date, but that's when it is expected. So that is something that I'm looking forward to, and I think that's going to be a really interesting retelling of a kind of older tale. And I do love coming of age stories where you have to learn how to control and how to use your magic. So I think this one's gonna be right up my alley. And if I like this one, I might read the books that are prequels, which is the Spin the Dawn duology. So we will see how this one goes. If any of you have read the Spin the Dawn duology, let me know. I haven't had a huge interest in it, but if it's really, really amazing and everyone really loves it, especially people that have similar reading tastes to me, then I would maybe check out the first one and see if I enjoy it. So the next book is a sequel. I don't usually put sequels on my anticipated list, but I have read the first 2 in this series, and this sequel is the 4th book. I have the 3rd book. I need to read it. I don't think I need to reread the first 2 books because I think I remember enough of it to read the 3rd book. But this book, the 4th one, is called A Witch Shadow by Susan Dennard. Now, there is already the first 3 books that are out right now, and it's a favorite of many people. These books have been published for a while now, so I was surprised to hear that there's a 4th one coming out, but that gives me even more fire to read the 3rd one, which is Blood Witch, I think. And actually, I was really interested in Blood Witch when I got it, so I don't know why I didn't read it. But Witch Shadow is going to be the 4th in this series, so if you haven't read it, I recommend reading the synopsis for the first one, which is called Truth Witch. It is really good. The magic system in this world is also really interesting, and there's different types of magic, different types of tribes of magic, and like ways that people manipulate it that are non-magical. The romance in it is actually also really cute, and I really did enjoy it. So I am anticipating Witch Shadow, which is the 4th one. I'm not going to talk too much about the synopsis because Truth Witch is where you want to start if you're going to start this trilogy, or this series rather. But anyways, that is going to be on my list because that is just a personal one that I am really anticipating. If any of you have read the Truth Witch series and have finished all of them that are out so far, let me know. I want to talk to people that have also read it and have also really enjoyed it. Witch Shadow is out the 22nd of June this year. This next one I actually did hear about in the beginning of the year, and I'm not sure if I put it in my anticipated reads list, but I've just seen it come up in other lists online, not really on BookTube or on Bookstagram, but just in my own searches when I'm looking at other books. This one keeps coming up as recommended for me, even though it is going to be published this summer. And this one's called The Emperor's Ruin by Brian Staveley. This one's coming out July 6th of this year, and it's hard for me to describe the synopsis, but it is high fantasy, so I'm just gonna read it to y'all and see if you'll be interested in it. I am very intrigued. It's not on my pre-order list, but I would want to read this and see if I would like it because I have seen his other books that have become recently more popular, and I would want to see if this book is also among the ones that people are really gonna love. So it says, the Anurian Empire is disintegrating. The advantages it used for millennia have fallen to ruin. The ranks of the Catral have been decimated from within, and the Kenta Gates, granting instantaneous travel across the vast lands of the Empire, can no longer be used. In order to save the Empire, one of the surviving Catral must voyage beyond the edge of the known world through a land that warps and poisons all living things to find the nesting ground of the giant warhawks. Meanwhile, a monk turned con artist may hold the secret to the Kenta Gates. But time is running out. Deep within the southern reaches of the Empire, an ancient godlike race has begun to stir. What they discover will change them and the Anurian Empire forever, if they can survive. So that sounds really intriguing to me, very adventure, very quest-like. And I think this is marketed as young adult, but it might actually be new adult depending on like the themes that it has, because it does seem to have some darker themes. Either way, I'm very intrigued by this one, and I'm curious to see what it will be like when I get a chance to read it. So this next one is a retelling that's been done a few times, and I actually have a book based on this retelling for another author that I need to read, but this one sounded really intriguing and I do like this kind of retelling. This one's called Sisters of the Snake by, I think, two sisters, Sasha Nanua and Serena Nanua, if I'm pronouncing those names right. I really hope so. It is basically a princess pauper switch between two girls that obviously look identical to each other, and they switch places to live like the other lives, and I guess they also need to save their world, and deals are struck, and there's hidden magics and dangers and things that they have to navigate. So it's also YA, but it does sound really good, and I think these retellings can be a lot of fun and can be very diverse depending on who's writing them. And this one comes out June 15th. So this one I have pre-ordered. It is called Nolan by Michael J. Sullivan. I've heard really amazing things about this author. I think he's usually self-published and maybe works with smaller publishing houses, but I do want to read more of his works and I do want to get into his writing. This book comes out August 3rd and it's going to be a first in another series based on a world that he's already written in. And I'm going to read the synopsis because, again, I feel like it's the best way to describe it. It says, after more than 500 years of exile, the heir to the Empire is wary about his sudden reassignment to the active duty on the Goblin War's front lines. His assignment to rescue an outpost leads to a dead-end canyon deep inside enemy territory, and his suspicion turns to dread when he discovers the stronghold does not exist. But whoever went to the trouble of planning his death to look like a casualty of war did not know he would be assigned to the 7th Silcaria Auxiliary Squadron. In the depths of an unforgiving jungle, a legend is about to be born, and the world of Elan will never be the same. So also sounds kind of like a quest magic book, very war focused. I don't know how much I love purely war focused fantasy books, but this is something that I want to get into because I've heard just so many great things about this author. So this next one, I wasn't totally sure about putting it on my list, but I've heard a couple people talk about it, and it is very violent and gory and cannibalistic in nature. It is called Star Eater by Kirsten Hall, and it comes out June 22nd of this year. So basically about this girl that I think wants out of her magical sisterhood and doesn't want to get pregnant. I'm not sure how those two are tied together, but somehow they're tied together. And so she gets an offer from this other faction to spy, and she takes it, and thus begins our story. And that's all I kind of know. It sounds like she gets to the higher stages of this other faction or whatever she's supposed to spy on and discovers this crazy opulent world. And I think it has to do with like gore and maybe some cannibalistic tendencies. I'm not sure if cannibalism is like the thing here, but the cover, when you look at it, has like a girl with blood on her face, and I think that's something to do. I don't think it's vampirism. Maybe it's vampirism, but that's not explicitly stated in the synopsis, so we'll see. But either way, there's a bloody mouth on the cover, so it's gonna be gory. There's gonna be some kind of blood in it, and I'm really intrigued by the actual synopsis and where the story is gonna lead us. So while I wasn't originally gonna have it on my list, it is on my list. The next one I have an ARC for, which is why I added it to this list, but I haven't read it yet. And it's called A Dragon Bird in the Fern, and it's by Laura Ruckert, and it comes out August 3rd. And basically this princess's older sister gets murdered, and her ghost is haunting the canals of the city, expecting her murder to be avenged. And so she has to marry the king that her sister had to marry, but I think there's conflict because she also wants to hunt down the murderer of her sister, and I think that's kind of where our story begins. There's also an added layer that the assassin actually comes from the king's land, that the king that she has to marry, so I think she ends up wanting to marry him so that she can find this assassin and avenge her sister's murder, which I think is really interesting and cool. This one's also marketed as YA, and that is very interesting to me. I'm kind of wondering how the story is going to unfold, because I've heard that there is a good romance subplot in this one. So not only is it fantasy and high fantasy, but it is with a romantic subplot as well. So this next one, I'll make it quick. It is called The Witch King by H.E. Edgman, and this one has trans rep in a fantasy novel, which I don't see a lot of. It's marketed as YA, which is also awesome, and it comes out June 1st, so just in a couple weeks or so. And the tagline says, to save a fake kingdom, a trans witch must face his traumatic past and the royal fiance he left behind, which is all I needed to know, really. I saw that tagline and I was like, yep, this book is for me. And honestly, when it comes out June 1st, I think I'm going to pre-order it now so that I can have a copy. So that's it for this video. These are the books that I'm highly anticipating for the summer and that I'm really intrigued by, so I'm hoping that I'll love them. If you are anticipating any of them, or if you've read any arcs of them, please let me know. I would love to hear what you thought of them, as always, in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more from me, please do not hesitate to click on that subscribe button.